We are back from our cruise to Norway, and I cannot wait to share our experiences with you. Ahoy, travelers! It's Amy here to help you make your travel experience a success. Well, this was our first cruise overseas, and doing so on a cruise ship that holds mostly Europeans was something definitely new in and of itself. We had so many new experiences and were able to see places that we probably never will get to see again. It was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime trip for us. Now, I often see videos from Europeans that make fun of Americans for never leaving North America. And yes, I know that Europe is not a country, but I see this from people all over Europe. So while I have been to England and Paris decades ago, many don't ever visit countries across the pond. There's a very good reason for that, though, and one good reason is the flights. Not only were they expensive, even for basic economy, but we're talking 20 hours of travel with 3 different planes to get us from our closest airport to our destination in Hamburg, Germany. It's hard for most Americans to justify the cost and time when the U.S. is so huge and offers an almost endless variety of places to visit. So being able to make this trip was so special for us. Well, I've always said that it's important to get to your embarkation city a day early so that you don't have any issues, or if you do have issues, you've got some time to work them out. When planning our trip, we decided to get to Germany several days early so that we could explore some prior to our cruise. We flew into Hamburg, Germany, and had 2 days there before heading to Kiel, Germany, which was where we would embark. That gave us a day to acclimate to a different time zone and a full day to explore Hamburg. The one thing I would do differently is pay more attention to when our flight arrived versus when we could check into the hotel. Now, we got into Hamburg about 4 hours before we could check into our hotel after being on like a plane for 20 hours or whatever it was. But I did think about asking for an early check-in time until it was just too late. We were too exhausted to do any sightseeing, even though the hotel would let us check our luggage there. We were just too tired. So when we got into Hamburg, we just ended up sitting in the hotel lobby until our room was ready. And all we wanted to do was sleep, but we sat up on some couches and tried to stay awake until we could get into our room and take a nap. You'll have to check back for a future video on our time in Germany and our experience with public transportation. For a bunch of country girls who live in an area without things like trains, buses, and subways, it was an experience, especially doing so when everything is in a foreign language. Now, while we enjoyed our time in Germany, getting on board the MSC Euribia and visiting our stops in Norway were why we made this trip. Our hotel in Kiel was close enough to the terminal that we could actually walk there. Even with me not being able to lift my luggage after surgery and Mom had wrenched her back the night before, our walk was all downhill, so it was fairly easy to roll our luggage and just walk to the port. So that was a bonus. Now, I have never experienced an embarkation like the one we had getting on the Euribia in Kiel. Everything was outdoors. Now, I was supposed to have assistance and a wheelchair so that I didn't have to stand through long lines and deal with my luggage. If you're new to this channel, you may not know I had surgery not that long before we went on our trip. The surgery was not planned. The trip had been planned for 2 years. So I had to make some concessions in how I would normally travel. Unfortunately, the staff acted like they didn't have a clue what I was talking about. While the MSC worker I spoke to had a complete grasp of English at first, she seemed to lose all ability to speak English when I asked her if they had a wheelchair for me. Now, this went on for long enough that I got so frustrated that I just gave up. The line was long and we had to take our luggage with us the entire way. Now, that's not something I'm used to having to do, as every other cruise I've been on, there have been porters that take your luggage outside the terminal, but we never went in the terminal. While the line wasn't terrible and I managed it okay, I don't know what a person would have done if they had requested assistance and needed it, really had to have it. Once we got through and checked in, the walk to the ship was so long. And here's the deal. I could see a couple of wheelchairs sitting off in a corner. So I knew they were there the entire time. I knew they were there before I spoke to this woman about the fact that I was supposed to have assistance. Now, while I have several videos planned on MSC and the Euribia, so I don't want to say too much right now, I will say that the ship was beautiful. I've heard a lot of people say that MSC ships are beautiful, and they're right. I've also heard that the ships have a specific scent, but I never noticed it. They were selling that unique scent in the gift shop, but I honestly never noticed that the ship itself had that smell. And I was paying attention. I was looking for it. So have you been on an MSC ship and noticed this unique scent? Let me know in the comments. I've heard that some love it so much that they buy it at the gift shop for their homes. Maybe the Euribia just wasn't pumping the scent in as much as other ships. So as I said, this was a cruise full of Europeans. It's a big ship. It's over 5,000, and they said they were fully booked. And I don't know exactly what that meant. I didn't ask what the actual number was. But there were only 42 Americans on our cruise, and Mom and I were 2 of them. So like I said, the majority of cruisers on the ship were European, and while I didn't check on the numbers for them, most of what I heard being spoken around me was German, Spanish, and Italian. It was definitely a different experience to be among the minority on a cruise, as our usual cruises are US-based lines sailing around the Caribbean. Now, while the majority of guests spoke English to some degree, it was unique to be sitting in a lounge and all the conversation around us was in another language. Now, I only ever heard one person from the US, and that was in an elevator. This was our first experience having a balcony. Normally, we save money by booking an interior cabin, but since so much of this cruise was about the views, even while sailing from port to port, we chose to spring for a balcony. And we did not regret that decision. Being able to sit out on our balcony as we sailed through the fjords was so worth the cost. I'll still continue to book interior cabins for most cruises. I'm not spoiled. I don't think I have to have a balcony from now on. But if the scenery is a big part of the cruise, then a balcony is a great splurge. Now, Mom and I would spend our time out almost every day reading and taking in the gorgeous views. Now, as usual, we spent some time on embarkation day exploring the ships so we could get an idea of the layout and where everything was. And of course, we also sat down for a few cocktails. If you're interested in MSC's drink packages, bars, lounges, and more, you're going to want to make sure you're subscribed with notifications on because I will be posting a video regarding those fairly soon. So this itinerary had 4 port stops. Our first stop was in Copenhagen, Denmark, where we booked a hop-on, hop-off bus and a canal boat ride. The next stop was one of the main reasons we booked this specific ship and itinerary, the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Geiranger Fjord. Now, you will want to check back for a video of our time at Geiranger and see why it is a must-see Norwegian town. Our third stop was our most northern Norwegian stop of Molde. I'm still not sure how it's supposed to be pronounced. Is it Molde or Molde? I've heard both. We didn't have anything planned for this stop as there really wasn't anything to do there. I'm still unsure why MSC stops there instead of Hellesylt, but I have a feeling it has to do with cost in some way. We walked around and visited some shops, but we didn't spend a lot of time ashore. Our last stop was the second place that we had really wanted to visit, Flåm, Norway. I'd heard a lot about the train from Flåm to Martel being one of the most popular things to do when visiting Norway. You'll have to wait for a future video to find out if I think that the train trip was worth it. Now, I have several upcoming videos planned, including one of the best and worst of the MSC Euribia, a look at their bars and lounges, and if MSC food is as bad as many claim, plus, of course, a look at the places we visited. You'll want to make sure you come back for those. So are you ready for more information on cruising? Why not stick around and check out this video and then come back for more information designed to help you have an amazing cruise. Have a blessed week, everyone.